Welcome back to Worldview. Now, joining us today is Adrian Masters. He's the political editor at ITV here in Wales. He's been on the program with us before. And since this has been such a chock-a-block full week of British political news affecting us all, I really wanted to have him back. Adrian Masters, welcome back to Worldview.
Thank you very much for asking me.
It's a pleasure to have you again. Let's begin with the news that obviously started this week, just ended, which was the vote for gay marriage on what's called the third reading of the bill, and the sort of tempest in a teapot that sort of rose up around it. The number of Tory backbenchers and very conservative members of that party attempted to lead a revolt. And can you give us a little bit of an update as to how that happened and how it was eventually quelled?
It's very difficult for people outside the parliamentary world and sometimes outside of political parties to work out why things exercise politicians so much. But gay marriage, or same-sex marriage as it's often referred to in these bills, that's one of those things that gets Conservative MPs really going. There was what was a massive rebellion against the government of David Cameron on that third reading this week, and it's something that no amount of explanation, no amount of discussion can dissuade them from doing. They know it harms the reputation and the image of their party. They know it causes problems to their leadership, but they carry on insisting on voting this way.
And how exactly was he able to cobble together an agreement? Obviously, the Labour Party would have been in support of it. The Liberal Democrats would have been in support of it. Were there enough, obviously, Conservative voters that were for it, or how did it actually pass?
Well, it was fewer than half of the Conservative Party voted for it. The Lib Dems all backed it. Most of Labour, yes. So it was with the support of other parties other than the Conservative Party. So it was a broad-based coalition across all the parties that actually managed to get it through. The majority of Conservative MPs actually rebelled against it. But yes, it was. Labour say that it was they that won it, and there's a good case for that because it was Labour votes that actually managed to achieve the majority and see it become law.
And when we talk a little bit about the damage that could potentially have been done to the Conservative Party, a rather unique letter was written by David Cameron to the members of his party. Tell us a little bit about that whole process and the repair process.
There is a feeling amongst what we call the grassroots of the Tory party that David Cameron and his leadership are they don't like them. They don't respect them. They see them as stick in the muds and people that actually are, well, conservatives, which sounds crazy with a party with the name Conservative. And yet that's exactly the sort of divide that the membership of the party at large throughout the whole of the UK, this is the stereotype, that they are backward looking, that they don't want to see change, they don't want to see things like equal marriage, they're anti-immigration, they're anti-Europe, and it's the leadership that project themselves as modern and reforming and want to see all these kind of things. That all boiled over because a senior Conservative figure, somebody said to be close to the Prime Minister, actually described the grassroots, or supposedly described the grassroots to some journalists as swivel-eyed loons. Which it's very interesting as an aside, by the way, that a lot of the Tory grassroots members have actually adopted that title and quite like being called swivel-eyed loons. But it shows what they thought was a disrespect. So David Cameron wrote to those activists to say how much he appreciated all the work that they did. But there's definitely a disconnect, the sense that the party at large is Conservative with a little and a capital C and backward-looking, and the party leadership is forward-looking and reforming. The truth's probably somewhere in between, but it just goes to show really where that debate and where that division is.
Could be that you're beginning to develop the seeds of your own Tea Party here in this nation.
It certainly has been said. I mean, swivel-eyed loons, perhaps they could take that as their title because the Tea Party has took an insult and made it their own, and perhaps these will make it their own. There has always been a big chunk of the Conservative Party, if not the majority, then certainly a bulk of them, that are conservative, that actually don't want things to change and do appreciate the status quo, and they praise Victorian values, and they like to see hard work rewarded. Don't like immigration, don't like Europe, don't like the idea of gay marriage, that sort of thing. They've always been there. They just seem to be finding their voice a little bit more in recent days and speaking a little more loudly.
How much of this can we also sort of trace back to the relative success in those 34 local election contests of a couple of weeks ago, where Nigel Farage and UKIP, which would tend to mirror some of those beliefs on immigration and same-sex marriage, is that related in any way to what we're seeing now?
I think it's intricately connected. The party leaders, if not the party leadership in London, then the chairs and the secretaries of the local Conservative associations are certainly, I wouldn't say terrified, but alarmed by what they see as the rise of UKIP at a local level. They see a party that espouses a lot of the views that they espouse and their members espouse, taking votes from them, and they're really worried. There's talk of a hookup between the two parties, and some MPs have said that they'd be willing to be endorsed by UKIP, if not actually to leave the Conservative Party and become UKIP members. I think we're a long way from that, but it's certainly driving the debate on that side of the political divide.
We're talking with Adrian Masters, political editor of ITV here in Wales. Adrian, I wanted to switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about what's happened this past week in Woolwich. Obviously, it's a tragedy on so many levels. One of the things I've noticed is that if you try to compare governmental reaction to what happened in the Boston Marathon bombing to what we're seeing here in the United Kingdom, we're seeing a far less open amount of relationship with members of the media, and we're seeing far less information coming out, with a lot of attention being done on the investigation. And David Cameron also pulled together the Cobra Committee. Can you explain for our viewers a little bit what the Cobra Committee is about and what is happening in terms of information release and the way in which we learn about this?
What they call the Cobra Committee is the government's emergency or crisis management team, and it's a combination of military and political leaders with relevant leaders. So, for instance, in this case, the Mayor of London was involved, and they convene in an office, in a room in the Cabinet Office. So here we go. Here's where the name comes from: Cabinet Office Briefing Room, and the A is just attached to make it pronounced properly. So it's that's actually the room where they meet and have these decisions. It's a kind of to call it a war room is overstating it, but it's got various communications. It's secure, and that's where they meet. Convening that is usually a sign that the government takes something extremely seriously. It's more than just a crime, and the word terrorism was used fairly early on with regards to this instance. What happens then is, of course, a lot of the information. There is an information shutdown, and you get statements, controlled media access, I suppose, coming from the government. Very interestingly, in this particular case, a terrible incident as it was, you had a completely different openness, I suppose, from the actual incident itself, and we've seen those horrific videos surfacing on TV, on broadcast media, and on online media in a mainstream way. At the same time as perhaps that sort of operational information has closed down. So it poses a lot of interesting media ethical questions, aside from what was an awful incident and a terrible tragedy.
Indeed, it was your network in London that aired the first footage of the alleged assailant standing there with bloody hands and knives, and that clip went worldwide.
A lot of discussion internally and externally about that. It wasn't. I don't know the exact editorial processes, but I know senior editors at ITV thought long and hard about the implications of broadcasting that. And you're right, it really has. It's focused people's attention on what actually happened and the reality of what happened in a way that I don't think has happened before. It has been said that journalism, certainly in Britain, has crossed a historic dividing line. That may be overstating it, but it certainly seems pretty substantial.
Absolutely. And earlier this week on the program, we had Dario Lananes, who's one of the professors down at Falmouth University, talking about this same issue, about the pressure that's placed on mainstream media outlets such as yours by the explosion of social media sources and the fact that people carry around a virtual filming and editing suite inside of their cellular phone. So it's really quite an amazing time for our business.
It is, because it makes it well. It makes you question your role as a journalist. What is the role of the journalist? To sift information and to pass it on. But when all that information is widely available and actual footage of what's happened is widely available, then what is the role of the journalist in that? That's a bigger philosophical and ethical question, I suppose, because primarily the biggest response to what happened has been an entirely human one, and just how could that have happened?
Exactly, and one we'll be discussing for some time to come. Adrian, thank you so much for joining us today on the program.
Pleasure.
We've been speaking with Adrian Masters. He's the political editor for ITV in Wales, and he's been joining us to discuss what's been going on in Woolwich, as well as earlier the discussions of same-sex marriage amongst the UK Parliament. You're watching Worldview with Dennis Campbell. Stay right here.